Hey everyone, welcome back and thank you for being here. We're not in the frame yet, but we're coming. Winchester, come on. Someone's pulling in, so that's okay. It also is still pretty cloudy. Okay, so the last video turned off for some reason. I don't know if it had like a 30-second duration or if it had a weird setting that I wasn't expecting. But yeah, when I came around to the other side, it seemed like it had stopped recording. So somebody did just pull up. I think it's the park ranger just checking the sites. So shouldn't be any issues. I don't think they'll even. So if this was going to turn off again, it probably would have done it by now. So we're just going to hop in the frame and start recording. This is part 2 of the lecture series on Viola Cordova's How It Is. And specifically, this is part 2 of the first section. First section is called Bridges. The second section is called Windows. And the third section is called... There's like a lizard over there. Third section is called What is the World? The fourth section is what is a human? What does it mean to be a human? And the fifth section of the book is what is the role of a human in the world? Roughly corresponding to I guess like first philosophy in the first section, and experience, and like history and growing up. And in the second section, there's some epistemological work, basically, and some philosophy of language, and philosophy of perspective and multiplicity. In the third section, we're kind of doing metaphysics, and like I said before, and in the fourth section, we're doing existentialism and still some more meta-ethics and metaphysics. And in the fifth section, we're working on ethics proper and politics proper. So I assume. I haven't fully worked through the text yet, but I certainly will by the time we're done in New Mexico. That's why we're going through Taos and all of this. Why we're spending so much time here. So I'm curious to watch this ranger pull away, because I'm pretty sure it is a park ranger. But yeah, as soon as they do, and as soon as I know that everything's fine, we'll hop down there and get started in the frame. I know there's at least one other person who is scheduled to stop in or check in and camp at this site today. I see 5 sites really close to us, but we don't have anybody on one side of us, and we have one person on the other, so that's good. We only have one neighbor. Should be pretty private, and we've got it angled away towards the mountains. So they're at this nice setup. That was Margaret's rug. It went under the piano. Still goes under the piano, and I'll bring it back. And I thought it'd be nice to take that piece of her with us. That's Winchester's bed. He's gonna lay on it. He's got to stay next to me on leash because I don't want him in a tent. I think he was just like being really well behaved earlier when I was walking around, and I was just keeping an eye on him. But yeah, like there's this upper area that you can see into here from, so this is fine. I can show you like his water bottle that squeezes water into it, and yeah, we'll get started. The audio levels look good, the video looks good, and it doesn't look like it's gonna, it does look like it's not charging properly, but that's okay. So we're gonna take this off the charger, and we're going to assume that we have, I don't know, until the battery just turns off. Because it does not want to keep up. Like, I wanted to use the Predator. I think the other one I can use, the smaller battery I can use, and it'll keep up. But I'm using that over there on something else already. Alright, Winchester, come on. Let's get down there. The last video was an hour long, and we are almost at 5 minutes, and we've only used 1/10 of the battery. So that tells me we're probably going to get like maybe 50 minutes out of it, or 55. We got an hour and 5 last time, so we'll see. But audio levels look great. Come on, buddy. Let's get down. And lay down. Oh, yeah. So we got the bed all set up, and it looks great. Oh, great. So in this first series on Cordova, we're going to try to get through the first 45 pages of the text. And we've already gotten through some of the front matter, specifically the front matter and the Roman numerals, and then when we got to after the editor's introduction, there's a page that just says how it is, and it's just a blank page that looks like that, right? So I thought that was the start of the book in some sense, and we could start it there. Now, it's not the start of the first section. The author's introduction, right, is fair enough. I mean, that's an introduction. That's the introduction of the book. And then we have the 5 sections. So that's what we'll start with, but before the 5 major parts, and we're wrapping this front matter into the first major part, I should start a timer, sorry. Oh, I have one on my phone I'm going to use, or no, on my watch. So... I think it's stuck. Alright, so it's going now. Set it for 55 minutes. We have been going more than 5 minutes. I'll need to change that. I will set it for 30 minutes, and we can check in with the battery at that point. Alright. So in the next series, which I think will be at a different location, I think I can get the first series done at this location today and with the sunrise tomorrow. The sunrise is going to happen that way, so we're going to take a different vantage, and you're going to see there aren't any mountains over there that I can see. There's kind of some shrubbery next to us, and mostly just wide valley. So it's this like kind of, I don't know, Lion King moment. Like, don't go to the Badlands. Everything but they call it the Badlands. I'm going to the Badlands of South Dakota eventually. My dad really wants to see South Dakota. One thing I like about having the mic is that when I turn my head away from the camera, it can still pick up my voice really clearly, which I appreciate. So these flies are really bad, but I've got a really clean camp. I made my breakfast and my caffeine and whatnot, and got a sense of things. It took a while, but with the electric kettle, it'll be a lot smoother. Unfortunately, I can't run that kettle off of, I think I said this already, but off of the power station battery bank or off of the car converter. Neither one has enough load for it. So I think what I need instead is to buy just like the one that's designed to not need as many amps, and is meant to be used in a car or like with a battery or rechargeable or whatever. And they're not as like versatile, and I can just use this electric kettle at home. I needed one anyway. My old one broke. He looks so cozy. So this is in the back seat too with us. When I showed y'all him riding with us. So yeah, I don't know how many episodes we'll need to get through these 45, I think, pages, like I said. I don't know what the tangents will be like. I don't know what I'll have to say rambling or get distracted about. And hopefully there are no interruptions, no tech interruptions, no weather interruptions, no neighbor interruptions. Like, people are welcome here at all the sites. Yeah, just hopefully everything goes smoothly, and if that's the case, then I should be able to get everything recorded. So let's get in on it. Let's get started. We're probably about 10 minutes in now, and we've just been like framing what's going to happen and framing your expectations for what we're doing here. There's a dog barking in the distance. So Cordova, everything in here is written by Cordova except for, from henceforth, except for the biographical essay, which was written by Kurt Peters, like we said, who's one of the editors. And the editors also mentioned that they may have withheld certain phrases or tried to decide, had to make decisions about what to include to make it most cohesive. I can't tell you how much of this is, or how much of Cordova's writings are not presented here, but presumably it's not a misrepresentation of her view. I will also say that I found Cordova's text through the American Philosophical Association, a newsletter from one of their subcommittees, not a subcommittee, but like one of their reading groups or something like that, their mailing lists. And I may put in a grant application for some funding to help with this portion of the lecture series that I'm doing out here camping, specifically as it pertains to Cordova. So if that happens, then I'd like to in advance thank the American Philosophical Association on more than one front. They've supported me in multiple ways in the past before. I enjoy working with them, and they have extended a lot of grace, both in opportunities and funding and explanations and patience. So we'll do some lectures on recapping the Central and the Pacific APA experiences, 2 different, probably just one episode each, maybe more, maybe if I read the whole essay I presented, but it should be just 1 episode, it's fine. Anyway, we can hear more about that when they do. It may also rain. The road getting in here was insane. It was not paved. A lot of it was like dune, like it was left and right, and there were sharp dips, sharp humps. So like this, that you have to drive the car over like that. There were sharp dips where you have to like not bottom out bottom out the. So when you can't bottom out the middle on the humps, and you can't bottom out the front or the back on the dips. And then there were also like ravines in the road from water runoff. So like a river channel carved. It was dry. I didn't get any good. When I came in, it was dark. But when I leave, I'm going to take another time lapse video, and or just a regular video, one of the two, and you'll get to see it for yourself. But like, and then on a good portion of it, either the left or the right side, was just a sheer drop off. And like 2 cars would not fit on that road. I don't know what you would do if you met another car. I think you would have trouble backing up on the road. Like there's no shoulder or ditch on the side with the cutoff. There's no shoulder or ditch for you to like go over a little bit more. You just end up down the ravine. It was really sharp and narrow and steep. The campsite was like $10 a night, I think. And it's amazingly beautiful. I could have checked in as early as like 2 o'clock, I think, yesterday. But that would have required me to make some of my earlier stops on time. So, yeah, I think that's enough. Let's see, there's the coda at the end. We'll do it in 5 parts. And I want to thank any sponsors that I end up having for this work. So, I've seen a lot of deer here today. I don't know if they'll come up while I'm just sitting here talking. Hopefully they'll come by in the morning when we're watching the sunrise. The sunset is about 4 hours and 20 minutes from now. So we will probably get in 3, maybe 4 lectures. Maybe for the last one I can grab like I can do 1 or 2 more with a lantern next to me or something. Just to get like nighttime vibes too, just all day vibes. I haven't watched much of Better Call Saul. Maybe like the first like a good bit of the first bit of it. Maybe the first season, the first 2 seasons. I don't know. I think it's 4 seasons. And I couldn't get into Breaking Bad. It was just too intense. Not intense isn't. I don't know if that's the right word. Just like worrisome, concerning. Like things were going bad really fast in that show. Anyway, I've been thinking about that being here in New Mexico. I think he's in Albuquerque, but I can't remember. It's been a few months since I watched it. What else is on my mind being here? These flies are terrible, dude. I don't know what's got into them. You know what I mean? Okay. Charging is going well. So this is Cordova, and then we'll go to Kurt Peters with the next section. Next little brief section of the book. So I want to get some terms straight. When I say part, I mean like part 1, bridges, part 2, windows, part 3, what is the world, part 4, what is it to be a human, what is part 5, what is the role of a human in the world. When I talk about series, I mean the like, well, we should be able to do one part in one series. And that's just a 10 episode range. That should be more than doable. And then section is like, there are a number of sections per part. Okay. Author's introduction. Why Native American philosophy? 2 questions are important in introducing a book about Native American philosophy. The first deals with why, the second with how. The why is important because Native American thought represents a variety of human thought that has not been thoroughly explored. When we make such statements as all humans, whatever characteristic one wishes to apply here, we fail to take into account. I thought he'd be comfortable here. These flies are really bothering him. The sun's getting hot. The sun is really hot for him in his coat. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna go put him in the tent so he can be in the shade and away from all the bugs, so there are no flies in there. So I will be right back. Whoa. Come on. This actually goes in the tent with him. Oh yeah, that air mattress is totally deflated. So, come morning it will be flat. That's okay. No, you don't want to be over there with me. It's too hot, remember? Flies are bothering you. Good boy. Yeah, so we have his food and water right here. So someone just pulled into the campground next to us. So the why is important because Native American thought represents a variety of human thought that has not been thoroughly explored. When we make such statements as all humans, whatever characteristic one wishes to apply here, we fail to take into account the many possible ways that human beings might be defined. Each distinct cultural group, perhaps in an original isolation from other groups, provides three definitions around which they build all subsequent determinations about the world they live in. First, each has a definition or description of the world. Second, there is a definition of what it is to be human in the world, as it is so defined and described. And third, there is an attempt to outline the role of a human in that world. The distinct pattern of a culture may be seen to derive from these three definitions and may account for the distinctions between cultural groups. I refer to these definitions and descriptions as a worldview or matrix, because they are not singular and disconnected definitions, but compose a whole picture of interrelated concepts and ideas. An exploration of Native American thought is an experiment in discovering the differences between Native American thought and what is most familiar, European thought. The term European encompasses and goes beyond all those people who have an intellectual and biological background that derives from Europe, people of Canada, Australia, American or South African European ancestry. While it acknowledges the diversity of the experiences and beliefs of Europeans, the term represents that mixture of European, Christian, and scientific or modernist thought that has come to dominate the world. It is what Ortega y Gasset called the doctrine of human existence, which, like a leitmotif, is interwoven, insinuated, whispered in Europeans, the psychological architecture of the common European stock. In music, a leitmotif is a melodic theme associated with an idea or a person. In philosophy, it is the unquestioned truth that served and still serves as the foundation for all of the rest of Florida. Explaining the why is merely a matter of stating that one wishes to explore the varieties of thought, of which human beings appear to be capable. Native American as well as European. By understanding the leitmotif of Euro-Christian thought and all the ways it is distorted or created a parody of Native American thought, we can discover what our beliefs are not, and that in turn can open a window to an understanding of what a Native American philosophy is, a complex context of beliefs and stories, a worldview that has sustained life in North America since time is beyond memory, even against extraordinary efforts to exterminate it, a philosophy that has ideas that might sustain all of us into the future, despite Euroman's apparent efforts to exterminate the entire species. Oh, that was pretty. That bird just flew right by me. The challenge to find a way to live on the earth without wrecking it is so great that we cannot afford to limit ourselves to only one way of thinking. That's why. The how proves a greater difficulty. Study of the variety of European thought is accessible because the cultures involved have participated in a written tradition for a very long time. We may not have more than a few writings made by early Northern European Vikings, but there is access through the writings of literate peoples of the Mediterranean who recorded their observations of such people. The tracing of Western civilization to the ancient literary Greeks also provides a means to explore the early beginnings and the subsequent changes that the European people experienced. This is not what one finds in exploring Native American thought. There were some literate societies in North America when the Europeans were first arrived in Central America. Many of their written materials were destroyed as containing only heathen ideas. Nevertheless, some have survived. There are also accounts of the lives and forms of cultural organization that the Europeans encountered in the, quote, New World. Most of these early ethnographic studies were undertaken by missionaries, whose role was not so much to understand the concepts and ideas of the American, as to garner enough information about the American matrices. Matrices being here like that worldview or matrix is the plural for matrix that Cordova has in mind. so that the natives might be converted to Christianity. There are accessible written accounts of early contact that cover the areas of the Americas from north to south. These written accounts produce one problem that must be considered. The writers were viewing a very alien group of people from a matrix equally alien to the native peoples. So both had alien, as she calls them, matrices in relation to each other's matrices. We might think of a matrix or the matrices as intersectionalities, but more specifically as intertextualities, where the way that you read any text is a matter of what other text you had access to. And for Julia Kristeva, when she's thinking about intertextuality, the body is a text, and so there are more languages than just formal written language. There's the semiotic dimension to all language, and that involves rhythm and mood and melody and intonation, and probably intuition as well, and emotion and feeling, and openness and spaciousness and playfulness. Okay, anyway. The point is that when she discusses intertextuality, it could very well be something similar to this. I'm going to check levels. Looks like something's... No, it's fine. It's just dark. When Kristeva is discussing intertextuality, having seen a dance performance will allow you to create a different painting, and a specific dance performance will impact other dance performances. But what you know about the arts or about trade crafts like welding or fishing, for example, we're talking about Christianity here, right? So let's just talk about Jesus. Jesus used parables that involve fishing or daily life. And there's a sort of literacy involved in understanding these parables, but also in being able to generate them in the first place. And the literacy doesn't come from strictly language itself. It comes from other experiences in life, which can be, if you want to call them linguistic, then they're not formally linguistic. They involve other things. So these matrices, yeah, that's what we're thinking about, right? These intertextual matrices where people's historical affects and the experiences they've been through resonate in differing ways. What Brian Matsumi calls differential attunement, where we go through the same experience, we're conjoined by the experience in some way, spectrally, but we're going to experience it very differently from the jump because of the hermeneutic facilities, the specific interpretations we give to the experience based on what else we've experienced and what we're able to understand based on prior work that's already been accomplished or based on other experiences that have laid the groundwork for the understanding. So yeah, thinking about the hermeneutics, the effective hermeneutics as the intertextuality of matrices for Cordova. One of the most common approaches in the early contact literature is an attempt to find equivalent terms in native languages concerning concepts of importance to Europeans. I want to make sure we're still recording too, like actually recording, not just like... Yeah, and we're at 29 minutes. Equivalent terms in native languages concerning concepts of importance to Europeans. The terms here are those relating to religious ideas: soul, good and evil, God, sin, and the afterlife. Whether the European religious terms actually have equivalents in native languages is a topic that is of much interest to Native Americans who are only now beginning to explore the discipline of philosophy. One of the explorations we will conduct is the comparison and contrast between the terms used to denote what each group deems sacred. So we've already just started to discuss this, how the word that Europeans used for God doesn't have a strict translation in Apache or Jicarilla. And also the word for sacred, or the different adumbrations of sacredness that are experienced by different cultures. Adumbrations here again meaning the ways that different things can join and add on to each other so they become part of each other, but they're intertextual, they're connected. Anyway, but they're irreducible to each other. That's the important part of adumbration, is that it's not a translation strictly per se. If it's a translation, then it's one that develops the original. One of the objections to studying Native American philosophy is that the groups called Native American represent too diverse a group to subsume under one label. The ideas of each group, it is argued, might be so different as to require an exploration of each group. In other words, one cannot generalize about the Native American peoples. And this is a similar tendency to what you find in pretty much any ethics that requires an appreciation for difference or an appreciation for multiplicity, is this conflict against the reductive capacity of monism, or of unity, of communion, of the absolute one being. The same is also argued in defending the diversity of European peoples and their thought. Descartes and Kant are not the same, one might hear. Nevertheless, there are enough similarities in the thought patterns of the you will see that there are spread throughout the Americas some similar concepts that allow one to speak of Native American thought in general. Other sources for exploring Native American thought, besides the early contact accounts, are the stories about how the groups came into existence and how the groups that survive today should conduct themselves in this world. Many of these stories involve a demonstration of value systems that have survived 500 years of attempted and systematic dissolution. An examination of the differences perceived by Native Americans between themselves and the mainstream will also serve as a means of exploring the differences in ethical and political systems. Oh, so when I stand, the flies leave me alone. When I sit, they bother the heck out of me. Let's grab the bear spray. How the groups that survive today should conduct themselves in this world. Many of these stories involve demonstration of. I think we finished that paragraph, so I'm going to go on. One word of caution is necessary in preparing a reader for involvement in something called Native American philosophy. Quote, philosophy does not mean that we will be discussing the specific systems of Native Americans, though that will be a part of the discussions. Philosophy is a methodological endeavor. It is what philosophers, quote, do. The methods of analyzing Native American thought will be no different than those used to analyze other forms of human thought. Philosophy is not theology. There will be no attempt to promote the validity or non-validity of various concepts in contrast to others. Differences will be presented as examples of the diversity of human thought patterns. We will explore what having certain concepts about the world and human beings commits us to, as well as the possible origins of specific concepts in both Western and non-Western thought. Something else might be noted. Native Americans do not see themselves as examples of, quote, primitive thought, ways of thinking that other cultures have experienced and outgrown. We see our ideas and concepts as rational, viable, and alternative means of interpreting the world. This fact is one of the reasons that Native Americans have managed to maintain a unique identity despite attempts to eradicate that identity. Compare this strong sense of identity to those who have, quote, roots in a European country. They have given up one identity in order to take on another identity, an American identity. Not all Americans have taken this step, and many groups find it important to maintain ties with their original languages, cultures, and even countries, but still identify themselves first and foremost as Americans. Many Native Americans will be found in this category. Others will not. All right. Biographical essay by Kurt Peters. Or V.F. Cordova. Viola Faye Cordova. Dr. Viola Faye Cordova. In a small adobe stucco on a dusty road in Belen, New Mexico, memories of Dr. Viola Cordova linger among a collection of art and academic notebooks, scattered through 3 or 4 rooms. Her once numerous paintings, papers, and mementos are few now, most given away to her family and closest friends by Denny Wilmore, Viola's husband and compagnon of 25 years. Among the remnants is a gentle, medium-sized parrot named Nash. Slick and green and flecked with blues, Nash is the last possession Viola acquired at her 65th birthday just before she died. The parrot stays close to the back door, always on the alert to make a quick getaway. It is Denny's constant and now only companion. Is there another thing I can do? Can I do it like this? Maybe? Can I put it where you can read it too? Not really. We'll write here. After Viola succumbed to an aneurysm, Denny sold their house in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and gave away all their collected household and personal goods. He packed a battered camper truck with the most precious remnants of her academic and artistic life, and drove with Nash to Taos, New Mexico, Viola's childhood home. There he decided to travel around in summer of 2004, exploring the mysterious southwest landscapes that Viola so cherished. Eventually, he and Nash resettled in Belen. However, it is Idaho Falls, rather than her birthplace in New Mexico, that marks the completed circle of Viola Cordova's life. Viola's father had years before chosen Idaho as a place for the family to live rather than their native New Mexico. Viola and Denny met in an Idaho Falls tavern. So my timer's going off for 30 minutes. And we're at 37 minutes in the recording, basically, so I can put another 15 minutes on. Viola and Denny met in an Idaho Falls tavern. A tavern, quote, of all places, he laughs, since that was out of character for both of us. Viola was reading the Tao of Physics, and Denny was instantly attracted to the twice-married undergrad at Idaho State University. Quote, when she began her university studies, he says, Viola already was well-educated and had read all the major works, as her earliest education in classical philosophical literature was self-taught. Never conflicted about her Jojola Apache/Hispanic heritage, Cordova drew on a core of Native American beliefs, but felt she needed to study Western philosophy to complete her knowledge. An inveterate researcher, Cordova was drawn to observe disparate belief systems. For example, the decidedly anti-Christian Cordova was joined with Jehovah's Witnesses to learn more about them. She was soon expelled when she openly questioned some of the foundations of church belief. Deeply anti-authoritarian and steeped in concerns about social justice, Cordova's participation in Vietnam War protests during the early 1970s earned her a dossier with the FBI. Way to go, man. Cordova earned a BA in philosophy from Idaho State University and an MA in philosophy from the University of New Mexico. She went on to earn her doctorate from the University of New Mexico in 1992. She was one of the first, if not the first, American Indians to receive a PhD in philosophy in the United States. If the late Dr. Fred Stone had not come to her rescue and mentored her, she never would have been allowed to graduate by the faculty at UNM, says Wilmore. Again, Wilmore was her husband. That loved her. She then went on to teach Native American and comparative philosophies at many universities. The University of Alaska at Fairbanks, Colorado State University, Oregon State University, Lakehead University, and Idaho State University, choosing never to stay long enough to fall into academic patterns she did not respect. At Lakehead University in Thunder Bay, Ontario in 1996 to 97, Dr. Cordova worked under a Rockefeller grant to establish the first university graduate program in Native American philosophies. There, she founded Ayangwa Yamazin. It's AYAANGWAAMIZIN. Ayangwa Yamazin, an international journal of indigenous philosophy. She was founding co-editor of the newsletter on American Indian philosophy for the American Philosophical Association. So, Again, that's how I heard about this, and hopefully it doesn't even matter if they give me support or not. I still want to thank them. Dr. Cordova traveled extensively to lecture from a position defined by her carefully considered and passionately held philosophy. She spoke at Fairbanks, Alaska each year on the philosophy of science, elsewhere comparing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to the Native American experience with the United States. But, quote, always Indian first, end quote, as Wilmore says. In her travels, she mentored countless others. Cordova was a talented painter as well as philosopher. Wilmore likes to take a tour through the few paintings by Cordova still on hand. One is a self-portrait done during the war protest years. Another is a watercolor of an Idaho landscape near the university. It points to a very small, nearly indistinguishable feature in the bottom right corner. It is a gazebo, where they like to sit and have long discussions on matters of importance, finding peace in a distressed world. His eyes are distracted by something. Unseen. Then they quicken and the conversation returns. Much of our art was done while Cordova served as the fine arts superintendent at the Idaho State Fair. Over a 13-year period, the fair exhibited the best of the Idaho artists, including her own. Perhaps driven by a lifelong belief that she had a, quote, weak heart, the fiercely independent Cordova was never intimidated. Even as she earned her place in academics, Dr. Cordova mothered 5 children to adulthood. Cordova's diverse interests also led her willingly. Sorry, got something in my eye. Cordova's diverse interests also led her willingly into the newest technology. She was an adept at all the latest computer fads, a quote thoroughly modern Millie, says Wilmore, laughing again. But he cautioned she took no vows of poverty, even moving to a clothes horse stage, loving shoes in abundance and copying the latest styles on her sewing machine. However, the importance of knowing herself, living her philosophies, and maintaining her strong-willed independence remained of utmost importance. One morning, Wilmore explains, Viola felt the effects of a ruptured blood vessel in her brain. Thinking that she was only feeling the occasional pangs of her self-diagnosed weak heart, Viola dressed, called someone to pick up her grandson from school, and only then drove herself to the hospital. When doctors notified the immediate family that Viola was dying of a brain aneurysm, her faraway children were summoned to keep vigil during the few waning days that remained. Dr. Viola Cordova passed this way forever on November 2nd, 2002. She left behind a legacy of scholarly pieces as well as personal musings on, quote, how it is in this world. The bulk of these now reside at Oregon State University and the University of New Mexico. The papers represent a unique and important voice in indigenous thought and philosophy. The rooms Denny and the parrot occupy are filled now with 25 years of transplanted memories. Denny is still quick to recall the indescribable care, deep respect, and admiration he felt for Viola, and his good luck at metaphorically, quote, winning the lottery when he met her. The back door is opened. Nash eyes it cautiously. The parrot flies to Wilmore's hand, nudging ever closer for his undivided attention. My father's earliest image of his mother is of a tall girl running back and forth over a bridge that spans a small river. So this is Viola's voice again, Cordova's voice again. So this would be my father's earliest image of his mother. Now we're thinking about Cordova's grandmother. So Cordova starts us there with her grandmother's experience, with her grandmother's Apache experience, because I don't think that's our only indigenous heritage. One of the main ones, though. And she'll look at her father quite a bit as well. She'll look at this grandmother again in contrast with her mother, who was Catholic. Alright. On one side of the creek, my father's earliest image of his mother is of a tall girl running back and forth over a bridge that spans a small creek. The bridge over Romero Creek. On one side of the creek is an indigenous settlement. The girl lives there, and her father's house. Her grown brothers live in additions built on to the main house. This in itself is unusual because her people are matrilineal. That is, the males go to the homes of their wives when they're married. The women bring their mates to the house of their mothers. Property, such as it is, passes through the hands of the maternal line, but not here. Nazaria Romero is the last child of an old man, and she has no sisters. Her mother died shortly after giving birth to Nazaria. The only women she sees are the wives of her brothers. When my father dies, she wonders, when brothers go to live with the families of their wives? Even now, she, at the age of 12, is her father's keeper. She has also a grandfather, and he is in better physical shape than her father. He goes every other day into the hills to pick firewood. He never rides his old horse, but when he returns in the late afternoon, the horse is laden with the sacks of firewood that he has picked before his door. Some say that the grandfather is close to 100 years old. Nazaria does not know. When he comes home from gathering wood, she offers him warm stew and a tortilla. Sometimes she sits with him on the bench against the wall that faces the sun in the afternoon. He tells her about the things he encountered in the woods. Turkeys, sage hens, ravens. They are themselves, grandfather says, a family of ravens. He tells her a story. First off, I don't know if I told you guys, but I ran into a raven in a town when I first got into New Mexico across the border. I stopped, and I think I recorded some stuff, but I think the raven came by after I recorded what we were doing. I'm not sure if I got it or not. But I yelled at it. I was like, "You're so cool. You're really, really cool." And it like jumped up whenever I was like, "Yeah!" And it was like it kept jumping in response to what I was saying. So I'm pretty sure I befriended the raven, and hopefully it tells all its raven friends about me. And I don't know, maybe it can describe what I even look like. Yeah. I want to have like lots of raven friends that'll come to my aid if I need them. They are themselves, grandfather says, a family of ravens. He tells her a story. Once, a long time ago, the people were hungry. The food they had stored for the winter barely lasted, and the spring was long and coming. Game was hard to find. In the midst of this despair, ravens began to appear among the people. They would come with their raucous calls and playful ways and cavort among the people. Having gathered the people together as audience, the ravens would take a low flight and move on to other places. The people did not fail to notice that the ravens always looked healthy and well fed. Their eyes would shine, and the feathers, which they groomed so carefully, glistened like raindrops in the sun. These ravens know where to find food to the people, and each day they watched as the ravens came to play and groom and taunt people. To play and groom and taunt the people. Keep in mind that ravens is capitalized and people is capitalized. One day, the people hatched a plan. They would trap one of the ravens and coerce him into telling them where they were finding food. They succeeded in trapping a young raven and tied a string to his foot to keep him from escaping. "Where do you go, raven, when you fly away from here?" asked the people. In those days, of course, the birds and humans could understand one another. "What do you eat, raven? You are not here with us." Raven said nothing. He struggled and cried, but he said nothing. Eventually, Raven's feathers began to dull, and he blinked his eyes slowly and carefully as he cast accusatory glances at his captors. Finally, he spoke. "Untie me," he said, "and I will show you where to find food." The people did not believe him. If he was willing to show us, asked some of the people, why didn't he do it before? They would not untie him. Raven grew more and more silent. There were no chirps, no cries, and then even the other ravens seemed to have stopped watching for him. It is useless, the people decided. There is no use in keeping him here. He will only starve along with the rest of us. The people began to untie Raven. "Now," said Raven in a weakened voice, "follow me." Raven flapped his wings and strutted a little here and there in front of the people. He waited for them to gather their children and their hunting weapons, and then he began his low flight through the gathered crowd. "Follow me," he crowed, and they did. Suddenly the Raven's brothers joined the group and greeted their missing brother with great glee. They dived and circled and played in the skies. The people watched the antics with patience. No one asked, "Should we trust these playing beings?" I love that, these playing beings. They simply watched and slowly followed the pursuing flock of ravens. Eventually, after climbing many hills and wandering through valleys, they came upon a herd of buffalo. Many ravens rose to greet the people. Welcome, they called. Welcome. Many days later, the people had gathered enough food, presumably from the buffalo, to last them until springtime arrived. They had called together all their children and old ones and made ready to go home. Before they left, they stood in silence for a few moments, and then gave a prayer of thanksgiving to the ravens. They had already thanked the buffalo people. On their way into their own homeland, they encountered a large raven, larger than they had ever seen. Raven spoke to them. It is our way to share what we have with others. Many times we invited you to come with us, and you ignored our invitation. Our children played among you, and you did not pay them any attention. It was not necessary to trap one of our children. They had come to invite you, and they wanted only that you should follow them. You would not do that. There will come a time, said the old raven, when our peoples will not speak directly to one another. We will have different languages, different homes, but we will always experience hunger. That is the way of beings on this earth. The next time our children come among you, he said, do not ignore them. They come to invite you to a feast. That is why, grandfather said to Nasaria, the sight of Raven lifts our spirits so. He is a true brother and spirit of the people. In his honor, we call ourselves ravens, that we might remember and share his spirit. In the springtime, it was an old custom that the people of the raven hunted the buffalo and took the hides and food to the people of the south, the pueblos. In return, they brought home beans and corn, fabrics and pottery, and sometimes beautiful young men and women as brides and grooms. As grandfather said the latter, he winked and nodded his playful head at his granddaughter. So again, this is still grandfather and Nasaria. This is grandfather, quote unquote, is Cordova's great-great-grandfather. Because that's the grandfather of her grandmother, right? We're talking about Cordova's grandmother, that's Nasaria. And so our 15-minute timer is done. We might have 5 minutes left in this episode. Maybe there's some time at the beginning of the next one that we can cut off to get it under an hour. But I didn't mean to go over there last time. We still have a good bit from the bridge over Romero Creek, more than we can cover in this video. So we're going to start in on it in the next one. But we can get to the bottom of page 14, which is a sort of section break inside the bridge over Romero Creek. Okay. So I set another 5-minute timer. Let's double check that's not going over time. Yeah, we're good. That'll bring us right under 58 minutes. That's all, dude. That is why, Alright, across the creek from the indigenous village there was another village. These were the Spaniards that had come from across the seas to settle among the people. The people taught them to grow corn and beans and squash, and taught them to hunt deer and buffalo and the wild ground fowl. The Spaniards taught the people to raise sheep and goats and pigs. The bridge across the creek joined the two peoples. The creek served to separate them. On one side of the creek, the people offered thanks to the raven, the sun, the earth, the rain, and the lightning. On the other side, the Spaniards hid in the buildings they called church and offered prayers to their invisible gods. In springtime, when the people were most happy, the Spaniards engaged in a strange ritual. They fashioned crosses of wood and marched their sacred statues around the village. Some of the men whipped their backs as they asked for the forgiveness of the sins of their families. And when they were done with their strange ritual, they dropped their mournful faces and laughed and invited their neighbors from across the creek to join them in the festive foods set out for all. One of Nasaria's chores was to go to the creek every day to bring home drinking water. One day a man from the Spanish village, who happened to be at the creek, walked over the bridge and gave her a loaf of Spanish bread. The bread was wrapped in a soft white cloth embroidered with small flowers. Shyly, Nasaria accepted the bread.
Another time, the man brought her some cheese wrapped in wax and tied with twine. Her brothers began to tease her about having an admirer, her grandfather thinks. The man across the river was small and had curly red hair. He was not a young man, but not so old as her father. Get this. Nasaria was 13 years old, right? Cordova's grandmother. She married. That's what you're about to find out. She married at 13. She was the tallest girl in her village and probably the most responsible. She did look older than other girls her age. Perhaps the man across the river thought she was. She began to refuse to go after the drinking water. Then the man came to visit her father and grandfather. He said his name was Faustin. He was a widower and had teenage sons and a daughter who was only 10. So this man has a daughter who's 3 years younger than the woman. Than his grandmother was Nasaria. The proposal, he wanted Nasaria to help him in his home. Her father and grandfather called her Nasaria. The proposal was put to her and she agreed to work for a few hours a day. Several months later, Nasaria married the man from across the river. He was in his mid-40s. She spent the next, 30 years older than her. 4 times her age, 3.5 times her age. She spent the next few years running across the bridge back and forth, quote, taking care, her brothers said, quote, of her old men. Very strange. And it's a question of how you approach the appropriateness of it when she's already asked us to not adopt the Euro-Christian monopolization or mono-logic, which is to say there's only one right answer, one right way of doing things. But she invites and encourages us to see other ways of living, maybe to see them even without passing a judgment one way or the other. Maybe it is bad, but after it's happened, what do you do? It's how it is. So there's certainly still things you could do if it was still bad. But I mean, anyway, I don't know.
I'm not endorsing child marriage. Obviously, 18 and up. It's still like 15 or 16 in like Kentucky or some of the more backward states, I think. With parental consent, children can be married off at very young ages. And there are senators actively saying, like, blocking bills that would ban that. And I think some of them actually did take on young brides. So we got to the bottom of page 14. And we're going to call it here. And we'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks for being here. I'm going to stop at the battery, too. Take care. I appreciate it. Peace.